Welcome, sports fans, to StraussNet Sports Radio. It is June 29th, 2022, as we hurtle towards the 4th of July. It's been a while. You've missed me, I hope. But I kind of thought about doing another episode earlier, but I decided with the way basketball playoffs kind of ended and then hockey still had like a whole round to go, just to let it ride and do one at the end of June. You did get 2 episodes in April, so you missed out on May. I was on vacation, went to the beach, saw some Cardinal baseball, had a nice Memorial Day, and then into June. So, yeah, it's been a couple of months, but you did get 2 in April as we previewed baseball and then the hockey and basketball playoffs. So here we are. It's late June, like I said, June 29th. It's my favorite week of the whole year. Christmas to New Year's is 1 week exactly. My birthday to 4th of July is 1 week exactly. It's my Christmas time. I love it. We got baseball. Usually the hockey and basketball playoffs have ended a little earlier, but this year between the NBA kind of pushing their playoffs and then NHL with the Olympic month, which turned into a makeup game month, things got a little later. Baseball did not get pushed back. We had about a week and a half off that we shouldn't have back in April. If you remember, we had the lockout and the shortened spring training. And we did our preview show with my dad, Mark Strauss. And I'm going to go through the previewed playoff predictions. And then I'm alone today. I'm going to make my own re-predictions at, we'll call it a halfway point. All-Star break's actually a couple weeks later this year. Maybe 1 week later than normal, but it's the second to last week of July rather than the second week of July. So we're not going to get that All-Star break preview going. We might do a little All-Star fun on this show a little later, but for now, we're going to do our quote halfway point preview, and then the second half of the show we're going to recap kind of the hockey, the Stanley Cup final and championship, and the NBA finals. Kind of went the way you'd think they would, didn't they? So, we'll get into all that, but first we're going to start with baseball. And I will remind everyone, if we get into any betting later, we are not sponsored by anyone, but we do use BetMGM, a lot of Yahoo Sports. That's just kind of what Yahoo Sports uses. Mr. Tim Bradshaw, who is on the DL, the IL, I guess as it is now, with a little foot surgery. We'll hear from him maybe on a future episode as he recovers. But he is not here today. He uses some different sources for betting. I'm just going to stick to what Yahoo and BetMGM tell me. Again, not a sponsorship. No money is coming into the show. It's just the services that I use. That and NBC Sports Edge for my news. I guess that runs through RotoWire. So I'm just telling you, you can all find this information yourselves as well. But again, not a sponsored show here. So that's where we're at. We're going to get into baseball. So let's recap first what it looked like as we entered the season, just after the lockout, before a pitch was thrown in a major league ballpark this year. A couple of these picks my dad and I disagreed on, but we'll have both. They're all pretty close. We had the Blue Jays winning the American League East, and they would eventually be our World Series champion over the Los Angeles Dodgers. That was, I don't want to use the word unanimous because there's only 2 of us, but between me and him, we both agreed Blue Jays over Dodgers was our World Series. I think we kind of talked about whether Astros or White Sox, and then, there was some debate in the National League. There was more debate in the National League than the American League, but Blue Jays over. We thought the best 3 teams were 4 teams were Blue Jays, Dodgers, White Sox, and Astros. So we got White Sox as your AL Central champion. The Houston Astros still holding it down in the AL West. Remember playoff format. We get 3 wild cards in each league. 12-team playoff format instead of 2 wild cards. The first round will be played 3 games in one stadium instead of the 1 game in one stadium. And the top teams get a bye. So you would get 2 division winners getting a week off, and then, which is kind of normal. Remember, it takes about 5 days to get to the wild card round with the one gamer just because of the way they space it out, but now it's just all going to get crammed in there. So really for the top division winners, it's not different than going straight to the division series. There's not this extra week off that we talk about in hockey and whatnot when there's a sweep. So if Jays, Sox, and Astros, the Jays we thought they'd be the best team in the American League, and one of those other two division winners would not play, whereas the bottom two wild cards and then the top wild card and the lowest division winner will all play. And then supposedly they don't reseed, so your top team's going to could play someone. I don't remember what I'm guessing. I guess the top seed plays the winner of the division winner and wild card game because you can have the lowest possible seed, but that means the lowest division winner could play. I don't entirely remember. It's not, and this isn't me not doing research. Some of it's not entirely clear. There's mixed reports out there, so we're gonna get reminded by MLB Network and such as we get close to the playoffs. Remember, this was kind of pushed through so they could get the season going on time. So, pardon me if I don't have all the information on the playoff scenario. Again, not a lack of research, just what is it? So we have Jays, White Sox, and Astros. We both agreed the Rays would be the top wild card team. Division winner last year, went to the World Series in the 2020 season, which I don't really discount how good some of those teams were. I do discredit how many teams were playing. It's going to look a lot like that format, except in 2020, I know I'm jumping back and forth, you'll pardon me. In 2020, the format was we got like the 14 16 teams or so, and they just all played. Now we're getting buys. Now we're getting rewards for teams win their division. And I'm going to guarantee you next year we're going to see, or a couple of years from now, we're going to see 2 more wild card teams. Owners wanted a 14-team playoff. Players were willing to do 12. That would just mean that all 4 wild cards would play each other, and then the division winners move on. So I guarantee you we'll see that soon. So, enough rambling by me. Jays, White Sox, Astros. Rays. And then we differed. Dad said Angels. I said Red Sox would find a way in. I just felt like the Red Sox, they were 2 wins from the World Series last year against an Astros team that wasn't 100% complete. And the Red Sox, you felt like maybe they could get better. We'll get into where they're at right now in a little bit. Angels, they've got Ohtani. You add some pieces there. You get healthy. You move on from Albert Pujols. You kind of say, all right, here's where we're at. And we'll see where they are. The Mariners, same story. They got really close to the playoffs last year. That was Dad's pick Mark Strauss's pick for wild card 3. I picked the Yankees. I was like, I don't see the Red Sox and Yankees going away. And I feel like the Yankees kind of, I thought they were better than they showed at the end of last year. It was interesting watching that 3-team race. I don't know how to. I didn't know how to feel about the Rays last year because it was. The last couple of years with the Rays, they did their job. They got in. They did what they needed to with what they had, but I felt like their roster wasn't as good as... The whole was better than the sum of its parts, essentially. I didn't think they had all the pieces they needed, but they've turned into something. They get it done. And so we both said Rays are going to be the top team in the wild cards for the American League, but the Jays were overall going to be by far the better team with how much they were almost in, and then they've improved. So that's where we're in the American League. National League, we differed in the NL East right off the bat. I said the defending champion Braves would be the division winner. I felt even though Freddie Freeman moved on, you got Matt Olson, you'd be getting Acuna back. He said Phillies. He felt like all the moves the Phillies have made them better. Their pitching might get better. And then the Central, we both thought Brewers' pitching would be too good for anybody to handle, even if there's some questions with their lineup. That's a subject that I wondered about, and I'm going to get into that later. I'm just kind of recapping. I'll talk about some of these individual teams and the differences. The Dodgers, like I said, they'd be your NL champion and West Division champion. We both agreed on that. And then the first wild card, we reversed our NL East. He had Phillies, I had Braves, so he's got Braves, I've got Phillies. We thought those two would be the best two. The Mets are the second wild card. It was kind of what would they do? They added a lot of pieces. This was right around DeGrom went out for at least the first half. They do have Scherzer. It was how would they all piece together, and I don't think we could have thought what was going to happen would happen quite as well as it had. And like I said, we'll get into that as we do. We're going to break this into 3 parts. Recap, and then where we're at, and then I'll predict moving forward. And then the last wild card we disagreed on. The problem was I think both these teams are close. He said San Diego Padres. I said Cardinals. He did not think the Cardinals had what it takes to win the wild card, and I agreed at that time. Remember, my last episode was based on what kind of grinds my gears with baseball. I wasn't all that excited about the Red Sox and the Cardinals early on. They did not look like good teams. I felt like the Cardinals were Swiss cheese in terms of a roster. I do like what they've done since then. And so we'll get into that here. But like I said, recapping, Blue Jays, White Sox, Astros, wild cards, Rays, Angels or Red Sox, Mariners or Yankees, Phillies or Braves, Brewers and Dodgers, wild cards, Braves or Phillies, Mets, San Diego or St. Louis. And I know with those wild cards, it's kind of like, well, you picked 4 different wild cards for 2 spots. Does that mean you think so-and-so's not getting in? That's correct. That's how we did it. It was, even though we were ranking them, it's who were our 3 teams, not we didn't do it per spot. We did it for the playoffs. So Dad thought Rays, Angels, Mariners. I thought Rays, Red Sox, Yankees. And that means in the National League, as close as the Braves, Phillies, and Mets kind of looked, that means each of us thought, okay, the Mets are getting in. Are the Braves better or are the Phillies better? Well, I guess in that case, they all got in, but because we both had the top wild card in the division winner. And we had the Blue Jays beating the Dodgers. So, yeah, I've said that enough for you. Blue Jays beating the Dodgers. That could still happen. I could still see that happening. So, when we come back in a few seconds, we will have Where Are They Now? So, we'll catch you up on where things look right now. Kind of look at some teams, injuries, where their standings are. If the playoffs start today, what it would look like. And a little later, we'll get into where they end up in my book. Welcome back to StraussNet Sports Radio. We're doing kind of a halfway point show about MLB and where our predictions were a few months ago, and now we're going to talk about where things are before we get on to predicting the rest of the way. So we said in the American League East, let's just take it division by division here. We said in the American League East, the Toronto Blue Jays would not only win the division, but win the World Series. The current American League East leader would be the New York Yankees, and that's by a whole 12.5 games. The Yankees stand at 55-20. The Blue Jays are 42-32, so they're not having a bad season. The Yankees are 6-4 in their last 10. Blue Jays are actually 5-5, and the Red Sox, who were in last, are at 42-33, standing at 7-3 in their last 10. It's been an interesting division so far. The Yankees have pretty much run and hid with it, and like I said, Boston started really low and they're skyrocketing. Blue Jays have kind of been the constant. They've been good the whole way through. They're not really falling apart or anything, but they're having a good year. Tampa's the one that's been interesting, where they're not really. They're 40-33. They're not like way behind the other 3. If we're just talking about the non-Yankee teams, the Yankees have been on a ridiculous pace. I mean, they've done great. Judge has been good. All the moves that they've made have been good. Their pitching's been good. They've had guys like Nestor Cortez stepping up. They don't even have Aroldis Chapman right now. He's been out with some soreness. He's coming back this week, but Clay Holmes has stepped up, and there's rumor that they could kind of play things a little like some of the teams like the Rays have done, where you kind of got the dual closer thing going. If all is well, Aroldis Chapman pitches the 9th inning. If you need somebody like Chapman or Holmes early, then you got him. Maybe there's a lefty matchup, and then Holmes closes. The Cardinals were doing this for a little bit with Ryan Helsley and Giovanni Gallegos, where Gallegos started the season as the closer, but Helsley, with how dominant he's been took the job away, but they kind of went with, okay, well, where do we need one of these guys right now? And it's turned into Helsley being the closer. Well, we'll see how the Yankees do it. Chapman does best in the ninth, but he also does best in the ninth in a clean inning where he's starting it. Holmes is probably more likely to come in if something happens in the ninth where you're up by 4 and then you need to bring your closer in. But that's prediction on my part. I have no idea how they're going to do it. We're going to find out. I do have Chapman on my fantasy team, so I'm curious. Blue Jays have had a few injuries here and there. They're not going to get Hak-Jin Ryu back. He had Tommy John surgery. But they've been pretty good. Their rotation's been really, really, really strong. That's been something fun to watch. With guys like Barrios and Manoah. They did add Kikuchi, and they've got Gossman. Stripling's been pitching for them. I mean, the reality is, all these guys, they've just been really good. That whole rotation is solid. It's like when the Cardinals had Michaelis pitching Game 1 of the playoffs in 2019. These guys are better than Michaelis was that year, but they needed Flaherty and Wainwright down the stretch, so Michaelis ended up pitching Game 1. Well, that's their whole rotation are guys you trust. That's now what Barrios and Manoah are doing. Manoah's been ridiculous. And then, Jordan Romano closing things out. I think they've kind of rotated some closers the last couple of years, but they've been pretty good. The Blue Jays are a tough group to handle. Obviously guys like Bichette, Vlad, they add Matt Chapman. It'll be interesting to see how they handle second base with, they've been using Espinal, and they did bring back Kevin Biggio, but he's not really turned quite into the star the other guys have. So the Blue Jays, they still look good in terms of our prediction. I'm not sure that they're going to win the division. If I had to guess, that's going to be the Yankees. The Yankees have just been too good. It's like everybody they plug in, and they have some... They've got some experience there. The last couple of years they've had guys get hurt, and just piece after piece comes in. But right now, Judge, they've still got Hicks. Marwin Gonzalez plays for them in a kind of a utility role. They've still got Joey Gallo. I didn't think the Gallo move was that good at the time. It felt like getting somebody to get someone. Then they went out and got Anthony Rizzo, who's been fantastic. I mean, he doesn't hit for the average he did in Chicago, but he's a clutch, impact, professional hitter and a really good first baseman, so he's been good for them. They added Matt Carpenter for depth, and he went on a run, hitting home runs for them. It's one of those, every move they've made has been good. It's been crazy. You've got Garrett Cole, Jordan Montgomery, Luis Severino. Tyone's been good. Nestor Cortez. The whole rotation's good. So if you want to say team of destiny, which we're going to talk about a little bit when we get to hockey with the Colorado Avalanche, but if you want the look of the team of destiny, like the Red Sox in 2018, where they just could not be slowed down and every move they made seemed to be right, New York Yankees really look like the team of destiny type. They're playing great. And I know I'm a Red Sox fan, but I appreciate organizations like the Yankees. I'm a Cardinal fan. I'm not a true Red Sox fan who hates the Yankees. I have a high appreciation for the Yankee organization. And they've stuck with the program, with the guys they have. They haven't let analytics completely take over their organization either. They've mixed it in. The Yankees look really, really solid. If I'm going to the playoffs, it'd be a disappointment to me if the Yankees don't at the least get to the American League Championship Series. And yes, I'm writing these down as I go, so the Yankees will be my AL East prediction moving forward. Having said that, I don't think the other teams in the AL East are bad. I definitely think they can get in. If you we'll get to the wild cards after the division. Let's stick with how things are, I guess. Central has bounced back and forth between Minnesota and Cleveland. The White Sox are 6 out. The White Sox have had some injuries. They've just not been healthy all year. Let's start from there down. They were my prediction. Yasmani Grandal has not been good at all. He's on the IL now. Liam Hendricks is on the IL. Eloy Jimenez is on the IL. Garrett Crochet is not going to be back until next year. The White Sox haven't been able to put it together, and there's people who think it's Tony La Russa. I don't. I like Tony La Russa. I know Tony La Russa gets seen as this old school manager, but sometimes we need some of that. I don't think Tony La Russa is the problem per se. I think that definitely there's some learning for him as a veteran old school manager who had a gap. Now, he was still in baseball with the Diamondbacks and the Red Sox, but he wasn't on the field. So I'll give some credibility to the idea that Tony La Russa, there was a learning curve to getting into the new age baseball. I don't think we need the new age baseball, though. I think you can do things the old way. I still like their rotation. You've still got Lucas Giolito. Lance Lynn missed a bunch of time. He's only recently back. Dylan Cease has been pretty good. You have Michael Kopech. Their bullpen, by name is pretty good. You've got Liam Hendricks. They did get rid of Kimbrel. He's the Dodgers closer now. Bummer's been in and out with injuries. They got Kendall Graveman. They put Joe Kelly back on the roster finally. He's been out. I do think that they're a pretty deep group. It's just, man, is it tough when things just aren't going to plan. Abreu's still at first. Second base, they've been using Josh Harrison and Larry Garcia because, remember, they traded their prospect to the Cubs for Kimbrel, which a lot of people criticized at the time. Can Kimbrel pitch in an eighth inning role? And they moved a good piece. So that's definitely unfortunate there. But you go for it. It's like the Cubs went for it with Chapman. What if that move doesn't work? Now, I'd say Chapman worked, even though he wasn't great down the stretch in the playoffs. He was burnt out. But the reality is he helped them get there. So, what if the White Sox win a World Series last year? What if they go to the ALCS? They just couldn't get over the Astros, just like the Red Sox couldn't. The Braves barely did. So it's hard to criticize moves in the moment. We talk about with the Cardinals with Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen for Marcell Ozuna when Cardinal fans have been screaming for a power hitter for multiple years, and they finally get one, and now, in hindsight, should they have traded somebody else besides Sandy Alcantara? I don't know. But the White Sox went for it, and you can't criticize that. I'm of the firm belief that for the right player, to have Hendricks and Kimbrel, I don't think you can criticize that when you look like you could go to the World Series. But the point is, the White Sox, they haven't been able to put it together. Yohan Moncada's been hurt off and on. Jake Berger's done a great job at third base. It's going to make a lot of people who were criticizing Moncada for a bad year last year say Jake Berger should be the third baseman. And generally, when they've both been healthy, Berger's played a little more. Aside from that, Tim Anderson's been out of the lineup. You did have the whole distraction with the Yankees and Josh Donaldson, but he's still, in terms of being a baseball player, and the outfield hasn't been healthy pretty much the whole way. You've had somebody missing. So the White Sox haven't looked complete at this point. It's really hard to, criticize them for too much for, the roster makeup. It just hasn't performed. So they were my prediction that that's not where it's going to land. I don't think. They could. Here's what I'll say on the White Sox. That is a team that is at 6 games out of their division with half the season to go. They can turn it around at any given moment. If they light up, now they got Lance Lynn healthy, you got your pitching staff going, that team can make a run and take. They're closer than the Cardinals were to a wild card spot last year. That team can still take the division. I'm going to have a really hard time picking my Central Division winner because of that. Because the other two teams are the Cleveland, formerly Indians, now Guardians, and the Twins. And the Guardians were in the lead of the division for a while. They've got Bieber and Cal Quantrill, Zach Plesac, Aaron Savali, and Tristan McKenzie in their rotation. That's not a bad rotation. I know Plesac hasn't quite been as good as people would like, and Savali hasn't. I like Savali. That's pretty good. They've got Clase at the end of the bullpen. They have Anthony Gose in their bullpen, and that just is amazing. Anthony Gose used to be an outfielder and is now a pitcher. I don't know if anyone's been following that story at all, but and then This Owen Miller guy's been good. They've been using Andres Jimenez. Jose Ramirez is still an MVP caliber player. Ahmed Rosario, Austin Hedges, Sandy Leone, Luke Malley for catchers. Like, none of these guys are that thrilling to a lot of people. Stephen Kawan, Miles Straw, Franmil Reyes, and Josh Naylor's been pretty good this year. He had a power run. They've put together what they've needed to, but this is why I have trouble counting out the White Sox. If you look at this team, you say, how did they get into first place in the division? They're good, not great. I could see them competing for a playoff spot, maybe, but they're just, I don't see them as a division winner. And if they do pull it off, it means the White Sox were bad all year, and they snuck their way in. They played past their potential probably most of the year. Now, I'm not trying to rain, or, my friends would say I'm not trying to do something that rhymes with hit, but there's an S involved. I'm not trying to rain on the Phillies, the Indians, the Guardians. There's not enough team names going on here. I'm not trying to rain on the Guardians. But let's be honest, when they came into the season, you didn't think they were going to be the guys to win the division. And I still don't really. I don't think they're as bad as people thought they would be. Detroit, we thought would be better, but they're apparently still building. Kansas City, we thought might be better. And I think Cleveland's benefiting from some of the other teams. It's not the world's strongest division. The Twins have been the team that's been pretty good all year, with Sonny Gray, Dylan Bundy, those guys. Chris Archer hasn't even been all that bad. They've built a little bit of a rotation. Pitching solves problems. Their relief pitching, it's hard to say who their closer even is, because they did trade for Emilio Pagan from San Diego, and he's been up and down. I think he's reliable. The thing that fantasy writers are talking about is this Johan Duran, who throws 100. He looks like a guy who should be the closer once they traded Rogers to San Diego. But Pagan's kind of the safe option. They've both gotten saves. Pagan just missed some time, so the question was, would Duran take the job? We'll see what happens. If I'm looking at the Yahoo roster, they don't have anyone listed as the closer, because really they have two. They still have Miguel Sano, Jorge Polanco, Urshela they got from the Yankees. They added Carlos Correa. They added Gary Sanchez from the Yankees. And then Larnach, Garlick, Byron Buxton, Max Kepler, Kirilloff, Arise. They're not a bad team, honestly. If you look at the division, they're at 43-34, and the White Sox are at 35-38. I have a really, really hard time with this. Honestly, I still feel like the White Sox are going to pick it up at some point. The White Sox are 4-6 in their last 10. The Minnesota Twins are 5-5. Cleveland's 4-6. The White Sox kind of remind me of what I complain about the Cardinals all the time, where it's like, what are you guys doing? Why are you so bad? They beat Tampa recently. They went 1-2 against Houston. They won 2 or 3 against Toronto. They lost against the Orioles. That's not good. You notice I didn't even talk about the Orioles in my AL East section. So it's just really hard to say what's going to happen with this division. Man, if you had to nail me down, I'm going to say Minnesota. I'm going to say the Twins at the halfway point. My instinct is that the Shy Sox have a chance. And I'm writing that down too. I'm not hedging my bet. I'm not splitting it. I'm predicting. I'm putting it on paper. The Twins are my prediction right now, with how everything is, to win the Central Division. I don't think the White Sox are going to pick it up quite enough with how they. If you look at, it's the age-old question: how do you think they're going to play versus how did they play? It's like free agency. You're rewarding guys based on what they did rather than what they're going to do. I'm rewarding the Twins based on what they've done and what the White Sox have done. I'm punishing the White Sox based on what they've done. But the reality is, I feel like the Chicago White Sox have a better chance if they can if the White Sox get healthy. That's their problem. They've been unhealthy. If they can get healthy, they can put it all together and be the division winner again. Easily. And that's why I'm torn. With the way things look right now, with the pitching the Twins have had, the Twins lead the division, and I feel like they can finish the job. They just have to hold firm. Maybe they make some moves at the deadline. They're not a bad team by any means. I don't really think the Twins are a, dominant division winner possibility, but what has to turn around for the White Sox? I mean, they have to be better. So I'm going to say Twins. I'm going to give the Twins the benefit of the doubt and say their pitching holds up and that their offense is good and that they have their dual closer threat and their front office goes out and makes a move. Because that's the other thing. If their front office goes out and adds to this team, the White Sox not only have to come back and win, but the Twins have to start losing. So it's going to be interesting to watch those two teams down the stretch. I don't think the Guardians factor here. I'm sorry, my buddy Mike Rizzo from Cleveland, who I work with on ESPN Peoria, who's all excited. I'm sorry, I don't believe in the Guardians. I think they're good. I don't think they're a non-competitive team. They're a competitive team, but I think the White Sox go on some sort of run, even if they fall short. It's a tough division, and we're going to have the same kind of problem with the NL Central, although I have a little more feeling on that one. The AL West is a done deal. Houston Astros are going to win that. They're up 10 games. I don't think the Rangers or the Angels or Seattle, who are all 10 to 12 and a half out, or the 22-game out Oakland Athletics, I think the Astros are winning that. They got Verlander back. Why would I think that the Astros are going to fall? They're good. The kid Jeremy Pena, who they brought up to replace Carlos Correa, has been a good player. They're getting the kid back who hurt himself in Chicago in the playoffs in center field. Although I still like Chas McCormick. He's a good player. They're still a good team, and you could see them be aggressive. The Astros are interesting because they are an analytic team who functions like an old school team. They do what you should. They use the analytics as a tool, but they've got Dusty Baker, who's an old school manager as well. So I don't want to see the Astros win. I don't like some of them, but you cannot argue with how good a team that is. You can't. Guys like Yordan Alvarez. The Astros' biggest thing is, let's look at their pitching staff. That was what hurt them last year in the playoffs and almost cost them against the Red Sox, is they didn't quite have the pitching. They got Verlander, Luis Garcia, Framber Valdez, Jose Urquidy. So those are 4 good starters, which they didn't have last year. They didn't have that many. It was the 3 guys minus Verlander in the playoffs, and then like Odorizzi's out, but they're not going to have McCullers. Let's see what it says on McCullers on NBC Edge. Houston. Lance McCullers, late July ? Forearm injury. Brantley's been out. They're hoping for early July. Josh James is not coming back. Odorizzi's out, Achilles injury. So they have some injury issues there. But really, if you're looking at a playoff situation, they've got 4 starters. I could see them going after another starting pitcher at the deadline. Closer still Ryan Presley, Christian Javier. Christian Javier was just part of a no-hitter. Let's look at his stats. Yeah, he's been starting. I don't know why they have him listed in the bullpen. He's been starting, and he's been good. June 25th, no earned runs. That was the one-hitter. The no-hitter, I'm sorry. It was a combined no-hitter. July 19th, 5 innings, 1 run. June 19th. June 13th, 6 innings, 2 runs. June 6th, 5 runs and 3 2/3 against Seattle, but then 4 innings, 1 run. 5 2/3, no runs. 6 innings, 1 run. This guy they would talk about him in the playoffs last year. He's a good pitcher. Could I still see them going out and getting a veteran starter? Yes. Do they have what they need? This rotation's better than it was when they went to the World Series. And then you add guys like, you got Maton, Hector Neris, who was a closer at one point. Brian Presley's a really good closer. It's it's a good team, let alone if McCullers comes back somehow. That's even better. Offense, you still got Yuli Gurriel, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman. Currently, they're using Mauricio Dubon. I'm sorry, I'm misreading that. I apologize. Jeremy Pena's at shortstop. Dubon was listed before Pena for some reason. They still got Aledmus Diaz, Maldonado, and Jason Castro are back. Jason Brantley, Michael Brantley's the left fielder or DH, along with Kyle Tucker in right field and Jordan Alvarez. Brantley's out right now. They just brought back Jake Myers was who I was talking about. Chas McCormick, Jose Siri. It's a built roster. It really is. These guys could go back to the World Series. They really could. I think they're better than they were a year ago. And they lost Carlos Correa. I mean, that's hard to do. You lose Carlos Correa, but maybe get better. Correa's a good player. He really is. That's going to be interesting come playoff time. Alex Bregman had a bad year last year, but if he's playing better than he was a year ago, then that'd be a big thing. I think the Verlander thing's maybe the biggest for that. Yeah, Bregman's 241 with 9 home runs, 36 RBIs this year. So he's not back to his MVP caliber, but that's a dangerous team over there. So we got Yankees, Twins, and Astros. My caveat is the White Sox, and we'll look at where the White Sox might fall for me when we get to wild card. Let's do the NL from a division winner standpoint. The NL East. The Mets lead the NL East, and the Braves are 4 back. Our prediction, Mark Strauss and I, were Phillies/Braves. I had the Braves, he had the Phillies, winning the NL East. Phillies are 8 games back. They had a manager change. I'm not discounting them. They can make the playoffs, but I'm just going to say it now. I'm taking the Mets. Mets are going to be my NL East team. For all the years we've said, here's the thing with the Mets. They're going to get hurt. They're all hurt. DeGrom and Scherzer got hurt. Bassett's been there, but they've still found ways to win. The Mets have found ways with the roster they have to win. Buck Showalter is having them play old school merry-go-round baseball, as I like to call it. 2013 Cardinals did this. Alan Craig was a doubles machine. You get a guy on, you get him over, you get him in. That's what they're doing. Scherzer, Tyler McGill is out. They have Carlos Carrasco. They have Bassett. Peterson's been pitching. Trevor Mays, he's a reliever. I'm confusing him with the Dodgers one. Man, my credibility score is going down with this episode because of how Yahoo is ranking people on their roster. I apologize. Scherzer, DeGrom, McGill, but they've got Carrasco, Bassett, Peterson. They're just finding ways to get it done, holding the fort down. Scherzer will hopefully be back soon. DeGrom, he's starting to rehab it a little bit. He's throwing. If the Mets get DeGrom and Scherzer going for the second half, healthy and effective, that's going to make a difference. Edwin Diaz is still their closer, and they've just mixed it up with different guys. Seth Lugo's still a piece of it. They've got Drew Smith, Ottavino, Shreve. Like I said, Trevor May, who I misread as a starter. They've gotten it done. Taijuan Walker's the other starting pitcher, who for some reason I couldn't remember. I own him on my fantasy team, and he's pretty good. The Mets loaded up on pitching, and they've needed it. Alonso's an all-star. That hasn't been announced yet, but he's going to be an all-star. He's really good. I want to see him win the home run derby for another year in a row. Jeff McNeil has returned to form. He stopped trying to hit home runs. He just tries to get hits. He just gets hits, and that's all he does. Eduardo Escobar is their third baseman, not having the greatest of years, but very respectable player. Francisco Lindor is not an MVP caliber Francisco Lindor, but he is a productive player now. They're paying him what they're paying him. If you're the Mets right now, you say, this is our team, and we're trying to win a World Series. Forget what we're paying these guys. Lindor's been productive. And then in the outfield, they've got guys like Mark Canha, Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte. J.D. Davis and Dominic Smith have done some DHing for them. Dom Smith hasn't quite been as good as you'd think he would have been, but this team's a little beat up. But I'd still say that they're division caliber. They're 4 games up with all that. 47-28 to the Braves, who are 43-32. So I'm going Mets. I do like Atlanta. They went on a crazy run for a while. They had some ridiculous winning streak, which ironically the Cubs snapped when they were on a 10-game losing streak. The Braves' winning streak went back to, I'd say it went back to May, but actually it was the beginning of June. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 straight wins. And the Cubs beat them 1-0 to snap that and the Cubs' 10-game losing streak. I think it's the only time that's ever happened. And then they lost back-to-back against the Cubs before winning 4 of their next 5. They're kind of going every other game the last week or so, but Braves look pretty good. They've got Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson in their rotation still. The bullpen's been a little up and down. Kenley Jansen just got hurt. They signed him, remember. A.J. Minter's been one of the best relievers. They're going to get Matzik back. They do have Colin McHugh. They've got a pretty good bullpen. Questions on whether or not Mike Soroka can come back this year. Let's take a look at what that says up here. Injuries. Yeah, Jansen's out 15 days. Acuna's sidelined for the moment, but he's back. He's been better. Albies has foot injury, broke his foot. They're hoping for mid-August. And then Eddie Rosario hopefully had an eye thing. He's been out for a lot of the year. Mid-2022 is the Mike Soroka projection. They have Kirby Yates. They're hoping he's back in August. Remember, he had like Tommy John last year. That could be another really valuable piece for them. And then, Jansby Swanson's been good. Austin Riley. Obviously, Matt Olson has been pretty seamless. Let's look at his stats. 12 home runs, hitting .253. He's a good player. There's nothing wrong with that. And then they've got Marcelo Zuna back, Adam Duvall. Acuna, I know he's been in and out of the lineup, but he actually last played a couple days ago. I don't know why Roto World says that Acuna's out. It says sideline. Let's click on that. What do you say, Roto World? NBC Sports Edge. Foot absent from the series opener. Acuna had some encouraging news, no fracture. It sounds like there's a chance he's back later this week. He probably got hit on the foot. But nothing horrible. So Acuna's not out long term. Again, it's not a team I've been following to the T. I know Acuna came back and he's productive. His year is going. He's hitting .281 with 7 home runs and 18 RBI, 28 runs scored. So they're happy to have him back. They won the World Series without him, and now they've got him back. Or obviously Jorge Soler moved on to the Marlins. I'm not gonna say the Braves as a wild card team quite yet, just because I'm not looking at all the teams, but I'm going to tell you probably I'm going to put the Braves in as a wild card team in my predictions for the second half. The NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers, sitting at 43-33, are currently in the lead, with the St. Louis Cardinals at 43-34, a half game back. Then you have Pittsburgh at 13 out, Cubs are 14 out, and the Reds are 15.5 out. This is a 2-team race, and I will tell you, it is completely different than when we started the year. The Brewers lineup does not thrill me. I just went to the game last Thursday against the Cardinals. Their lineup doesn't thrill me. Christian Yelich is not an MVP candidate anymore. Rowdy Tellez is a good player. Let me click on them so I can go through some of their roster. They've made Tyrone Taylor the center fielder. They've brought up Jonathan Davis. Hunter Renfroe is their right fielder. Yelich is in left. McCutchen is their DH, and he's just not what he used to be. He's not a bad player by any means, but it's kind of a complaint I had about the Cardinals when the season started. They didn't really have that big, fearful DH. It's Andrew McCutchen. He's a good player. He's not a great player anymore. Omar Narvaez and Victor Caratini at catcher. They've got Willy Adames playing shortstop. Third base is, currently it's Luis Urias at second base. It was Urias or Adames at third and short, but they've been using Brasso and Jace Peterson because Colton Wong's been hurt, and they don't know when he's coming back because he hurt himself and he kind of re-aggravated it. I'm kind of going up the roster on this one, so I apologize. Now, their strength is Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta is currently out. Let's go to the injuries on that one. But Freddie Peralta is currently out. They've got Adrian Hauser, Eric Lauer. Their rotation's really good if you want to look at it. That's the thing. That's their strength, their rotation. This is not the team from 2018, ironically, that had the lineup and they didn't quite have enough pitching, and they were piecing it together and bullpenning. Freddie Peralta's on the 60-day IL with a shoulder issue, and they're hoping he's back in August. Hunter Renfroe is on the IL mid-July with a calf injury. So Aaron Ashby is out. He's another starter for them. So you take Peralta out, and that's dangerous. But you still have Burns, Woodruff, and Hauser. Hauser hasn't been quite as good, but they're not bad. They've still got that top two that's better than pretty much any other pitcher in the division, and in some ways the league. So I still think the Brewers have a chance to win based on pitching alone. But let's take a look at St. Louis. St. Louis, remember, I was hard on them. Yes, I put them in. I said I was going to be a homer, and I put the Cardinals in as my last wild card over the Padres because I thought they were going to make some changes. Now, the first month of the season, it's the reverse of last year right now. Last year, they were so exciting coming into the season and didn't hold the fort down. They did not. Their pitching, they had injuries, their pitching fell apart, and they kind of had to remake themselves in the second half. This year, I didn't feel like they made the moves they needed in the offseason to build a proper team, and now it looks like they've made some changes, and it's all the youth movement. Their big signing this offseason was Steven Matz, who they're hoping will be back shortly. He's been out with a shoulder issue. Wasn't all that great when he came back, but Steven Matz and Albert Pujols and Corey Dickerson. And I was like, I liked Matz, but that's not the big DH that we were hoping for when we added a designated hitter. That's not going to do anything for, Albert Pujols now I've enjoyed the Albert Pujols thing, but in terms of this whole idea that Pujols was going to DH for us and maybe Dickerson against righties, I didn't like it. Now, Pujols generally still plays against lefties, but he can still hit lefties. It is 100%, in a brief aside about the Cardinals, been very fun to watch Pujols and the effect he's had on Nolan Gorman. Let's talk about the offense before we get to the pitching, because the pitching's kind of been the problem. The Cardinals' offense, since they've brought some guys up, have put it together. First of all, Paul Goldschmidt is like the number 2 overall player in fantasy. He's a stud and should be the starting first baseman for the All-Star team. Paul Goldschmidt is having maybe his best season, and I hope he finishes having that season. It's been great. It's been really fun. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. He does everything the right way. Nolan Arenado had a great April and slowed a little bit. I would still say he's an all-star. I would not say that he necessarily is... he's not doing as well as he was, but he's not doing bad. People seem to think he's, playing poorly. But he's not. Tommy Edman has been rotating between second base and shortstop this year because of the Nolan Gorman promotion. Gorman comes up. He generally plays against righties only because he's a big strikeout guy. He's left-handed. But I like what Gorman's done so far. There's some room for growth. He didn't come up and just tear it up like some other rookies. He didn't do the Tatis or Ryan Braun thing, but there's potential there. Some of this is because of Paul DeYoung, and DeYoung was so bad the last year or so that he got demoted. They brought up Brendan Donovan, who's a middle infielder by trade, but plays the outfield pretty well. Donovan, a la Jeff McNeil, just gets hits, and he's like a Matt Carpenter. He takes the count really deep, and he's able to go the other way, and he plays every position, and he plays them all well. So adding Donovan, almost him being the main guy, and Nolan Gorman, and then Juan Yepes, who was kind of a surprise addition to the wild card roster last year. No one knew much about him. First baseman, plays a little outfield, doesn't play the outfield well. Those three guys have made this lineup completely different than opening day. And that's on a team where Tyler O'Neill's been in and out of the lineup. He's on the IL again. Harrison Bader's been really good this year, even though he slumped lately and now has some plantar fasciitis, and it's going to be hard to say when he's coming back, hopefully sooner rather than later for his defense. Dylan Carlson was out. Now he'll slide over to center, and we're going to continue to see them piece together with Donovan, Yepes. Edmund can play the outfield if they need to. They do still have... from last year, Edmundo Sosa. He took over for DeYoung last year. They tried him a little bit this year, but he wasn't hitting all that much. But he's still a good player. Yadi Molina's on the IL. I've been using Andrew Kisner and Ivan Herrera. Try to see what they've got there for the future. Lars Nootbaar has come up and down and been a nice piece. We'll see when Corey Dickerson comes back, what happens with him. But so they're fighting some injuries. No Alex Reyes this year, shoulder injury. He's back. He'll hopefully be back next year. So far, last year is his best and really only full season with the team. So the Cardinals, just like everyone else, facing some injuries. It really feels like a lot of the teams this year are dealing with this. Dealt with. Remember, I didn't do my show since mid-April. A couple weeks into April, I wasn't that thrilled. Well, a lot of teams, things changed when the weather warmed up and when there's this period every year where you get spring training and then kind of this first couple of weeks where guys are ready but not into the groove yet. It feels like it took till late May to really get guys into a groove, or June. Like June, we really kind of saw where teams were. The Cardinals, between guys warming up and the roster changes that they've made, going from, Dickerson's playing every day to DeYoung and Sosa playing every day to Donovan, Yepes, Gorman coming up. It really feels like they changed. And I do think the Brewers' pitching is superior, but I don't think you can take away the fact that the Cardinals are working on putting together their pitching, which we'll get into here, and the Brewers' lineup just doesn't thrill me. The Brewers' lineup doesn't thrill me like the Cardinals' lineup didn't for a while. I don't see. I went to the game and it's like Tellez is the only guy who really scares me, and he's one of these pure power guys. Aside from that, they won the game that day, but it was a Cardinal pitching issue. Now here's where the Cardinals have the problem. This is why my dad didn't think they could make the playoffs. So you got Wainwright, but who do you have after it? Well, the answer is Miles Mikolas. Miles Mikolas has been probably a Cy Young candidate. We'll see how he does in the second half. He was one strike away from a no-hitter. One strike. Guy reached for a pitch that was out of the zone, hits it in the center over Bader's head for the Pirates, and one hitter. He ended up finishing the next batter off, too. So he got his one hitter. They brought someone in. He did not get the complete game. He was one strike from it. They brought somebody in to replace him because he'd already thrown so many pitches. And he's getting good his last time out, too. Let's look at his lines. He's got 2.57 ERA. He's 5-5. So you go back to the June 14th against Pittsburgh, 8 2/3, but then 6 1/3, 2 runs, 6 innings, 1 run against Milwaukee, and then Chicago. So he's been great. He had like 2 bad starts, May 29th and June 3rd, 6 runs, and then 4 runs in 5 innings. Isn't that thrilling? I wouldn't call it bad, but Miles Mikolas has been a revelation, and if he can stay healthy, that'd be great. Steven Matz is currently out. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Dakota Hudson has been pitching. He's been up and down. Not great, but serviceable. Jordan Hicks started the year in the rotation. He is now hurt and forearm issue. He's probably going back to the bullpen is what they said. He's not going back in the rotation. So we currently got Wainwright, Mikolas, Hudson. Andre Palante has been really good. He started the year as a reliever, sort of a bridge guy, but now he's been starting, and he's been good. The most runs he gave up as a starter have been 3 runs against the Cubs on last Friday. Flaherty came back to the rotation briefly. It kind of was can Flaherty stretch out in the rotation situation? They wanted him to have 1 or 2 more starts. He's only made the 3 starts, 3 runs in 3 innings, 2 runs in 3 innings, and then he came out with an injury after 2 innings. This has sparked the discussion about Sandy Alcantara, and maybe they should have traded Flaherty. I love Jack Flaherty when he's healthy, but he hasn't really been able to get there, and I think he needs to look inward and go, hey, man, hey, me, I need to get this. I know you can't stop yourself from getting hurt. I get that. I'm not criticizing a guy for being injured, but as someone who's he can be a polarizing figure, as someone who's very front and center, a guy who wants to be an ace, who's pitched like an ace, who's gotten Cy Young votes, is active on social media, very active about social issues. I'm not criticizing him for that. I don't have to agree with what he thinks in some categories. I agree with him in others. But he's very out there. He's very concerned. He's very smart. He's into his finances and negotiating contracts, and he won his arbitration a year ago, which someone hadn't done to the Cardinals in a number of years. He's involved in a lot of things besides just being on the field, and I'm not saying shut up and play. But as someone who is interested in being a personality and being involved in things besides just going out and pitching, Dakota Hudson, you don't hear him talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Wainwright is involved in a lot of stuff in the community. Miles Michaelis is one of our best pitchers, but he's not somebody who's out in front of the cameras. And again, I want to be specific. I'm not criticizing Jack Flaherty. It's his personality. This is how he is. What I'm saying is if you want to be a personality, you got to be on the field. And he needs to find a way to get out there and be part of this team during the stretch run. If he's not, that's going to be 2 years in a row where this team was short on pitching and Jack Flaherty wasn't part of it. The guy who was supposed to be their ace, even ahead of Adam Wainwright at times. So Jack Flaherty can be an X factor for this team if he can figure out how to get on the field and pitch at his level. He 100% can be that guy, but he's got to get back there. Again, I own 2 of his jerseys and multiple... I have every baseball card of Jack Flaherty made in the last couple of years. He's a fun pitcher, and when he's out there, I'm really excited to watch him pitch. I have his postseason jersey from a couple years ago. When I say I have his postseason jersey, not in the sense I actually have Trevor Rosenthal's July 4th jersey that he wore. I have a jersey with Flaherty on it from the postseason. I like the guy. He's one of my favorite Cardinals. I'm generally, I feel like, Mookie Betts is a bit of a personality. He's a fun player. Francisco Lindor is criticized when he wasn't putting up the numbers. Jack Flaherty needs to get on the field and put up the numbers to go with his personality. He's a great personality for the game, but he has to be pitching. Otherwise, he's just a personality, and those guys draw some negative... not that the Cardinals are going to get rid of him. His stock is very low right now, but we've seen what has happened to guys who show promise and potential and then can't get on the field to show said potential. So he needs to get it going in that regard. Anyway, I digress. I digress a lot. It's the Cardinals. I like talking about them. I do have a division to go, but I'm going to say the Cardinals are going to win this division. I think they're going to put it all together. I think they're putting it together right now. Maybe they need to go out and get another starting pitcher. Here's the thing, Steven Matz, if he comes back, slots into where Flaherty was, we still have Andre Pallante in the rotation. And Pallante's good. I think they should look at a starting pitcher. It's going to be hard to say what they should do because you're going to be talking about Frankie Montas. He's a guy who's rumored to be potentially on the move to someone like the Cardinals. He was rumored before the season. I don't know if they're going to give up that much. I think with the way this team's constructed, they're going to go a little lower key route. We'll see. Having said that, there is a guy, I think, in their organization who they could let have a shot, and that's Matt Liberatore. Matthew Liberatore came up with Nolan Gorman. They're old friends. They've been at every level together. Oddly enough, even though Liberatore came from the Rays at one point, but Liberatore got in the Cardinal system and came up with Gorman. I really like this guy. I don't get really on prospects a ton where this guy, I do it in hockey more. I really like Matt Liberatore. He came up, he was pretty good. He wasn't great, but I think they should just let Liberatore pitch for a while. I think right now, they should bring Liberatore up, let him pitch to the trade deadline. and make a decision. Do you need the other pitching help now? Let Palante pitch, let Liberatore pitch. Or when Matz comes back, then you can decide whether you want to move Palante back to the bullpen or see what... I think they just need to let Liberatore pitch. They can do themselves a lot of good instead of just piecing it together with guys like Packy, Naughton, and whoever else. Let the prospect pitch. You brought him up. Bring him back up. Let him pitch. I think he can do some good. One division to go here. Then we'll be on to the wild cards. The West. Now, I'm going to say Dodgers. I'm just going to write that down now. Maybe you can hear me writing it. Maybe you can't. So we're going to go Dodgers for NL West. They're 45-28, and the Padres are 45-31, only a game and a half back. Then you get the 5 games out San Francisco, and then you got Arizona and Colorado. I think the Dodgers will be fine. I know there's things that they've Walker Buehler's out, they've Andrew Haney out. They got Luis English, Julio Urias, not Luis, Clayton Kershaw. Gonsolin's been pretty good, but they just lost Daniel Hudson. How long's Trinan out? They still have Brewster Gratterall. David Price has been in their bullpen. Do you put him in the rotation again? Price has pitched to a 3.38 ERA as a reliever. They may not want to mess that up, but I mean, you got a guy sitting there you're paying. You might as well give him a shot, maybe. Kimbrel's been their closer. He's been fine. They added Freddie Freeman. He's the first baseman. Gavin Lux has been playing last second. Turner's at third still. Trey Turner, that's Justin. Trey Turner is at short. Will Smith's catching. You still got Chris Taylor, Bellinger. Mookie Betts has been out. Max Muncy's having a bad year. I don't know what's wrong with him. He just missed some time. He's in 167 with 6 home runs and 21 RBI. If this guy turns it on, that team's going to turn into something completely different. Like, they're good, and they'll get back to great if they can get healthy. But I still think the Dodgers are going to do it. I don't think the Padres are going to win the division. I think the Dodgers are. But if you look at the Padres, they've got Darvish. Snell's been pretty good. They did add Manaea. Joe Musgrove's been great. They've got Mike Clevenger back. Remember, he was out last year. They've got Mackenzie Gore in their rotation. What does it say with Mike Clevenger? He just pitched in late June. So my question is, who's been missing? Because Mackenzie Gore's been pitching. I own him in fantasy. Either way, Padres, they've got a lot of pitching there, and that's always good. Bullpen, Taylor Rogers, Pierce Johnson was a big piece of theirs. They've got Nick Martinez, Luis Garcia, who used to be with the Cardinals. They got a lot of pieces there. Eric Hosmer, Jake Cronenworth, Manny Machado has been out, but he'll be back. He hurt his foot. Could have been way, way worse. Looked like he could have dislocated his ankle or something, but he should be okay. Ha-Seong Kim, C.J. Abrams, Fernando Tatis still hasn't played this year. Let's look at San Diego, shall we? Injuries. Machado sidelined day-to-day. Will Myers is out indefinitely with a knee issue. Pierce Johnson had an elbow thing late June, ? Fernando Tatis, late July from the wrist, ? Drew Pomeranz is out indefinitely with forearm issue. Will he come back? Won't he come back? We're going to find out. But it's all going to depend on Fernando Tatis. Fernando Tatis is a big piece. I think if they get him, they really could make a bigger push. I'm going to have a hard time not counting them as a wild card team. So I'm going Dodgers. I'm going to take a second to catch my breath, maybe get some water. And when we come back, we're going to finish out this where do they stand now versus where are they going. I know I kind of laid this out as we're going to do it in what I predicted, where they stand, and then make more predictions. I'm just kind of doing it as I go. We'll recap it at the end. We're going to do the wild cards for each league, and that'll kind of wrap up where we're at here. Then we'll get into a little bit of a recap of the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals. The Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals. The age-old debate. What the heck does the S stand for in the NBA versus the NHL? Anyway, this is StraussNet Sports Radio. We will be right back. Welcome back to StraussNet Sports Radio. We're talking MLB halfway point, right around 4th of July. We've been doing the predictions for the rest of the season versus what we started with, and I'll kind of recap it back-to-back at the end of this segment. We're going to talk about the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals a little bit later. I don't have too much input on that, but we'll talk about the Blues a little bit. It's going to be a long episode, so stick around, grab some lunch. Don't know what you think about the 4th of July hats this year. I love getting the 4th of July hat. It's one of my favorite holidays. I said at the beginning of the show that's like my Christmas to New Year's, birthday to 4th of July, just because I love this time of year. I love the patriotic stuff. The hats this year, I don't think they were quite hit, but they weren't entirely as miss as people think they are. I think it's a fun look. I think it looks like a Revolutionary era painting. So it's a fun look. I don't think it's awful. I do like that it's embroidered. If it had been a print, I think that would have been worse, but it's all embroidered. If you get a look at any of these 4th of July hats, it's fun. Anyway, we were just talking about our division winners. We've been doing American League to National League all day. Let's flip it. Let's do our National League division wild card winners. Currently, Toronto, Boston, and Tampa, who trail the Yankees in the AL East, are our wild card teams. The 3 wild cards as opposed to the 2, and they will play a best of 3 at one park in a wild card series. So that leaves teams outside the bubble in this order: Cleveland, Texas, White Sox, Angels, Mariners, Baltimore, Detroit. Detroit's worse than Baltimore. That's kind of stunning. Kansas City, and Oakland. Now, we all thought, but my dad and I thought Seattle and the Angels would be better. Kind of thought Texas would be a little better, especially getting guys like Seager and Simeon. But it doesn't entirely surprise me that they're contenders. They're not pretenders. They're contenders, but they're not quite where I think they need to be. But where are we in terms of the actual wild card? Well, I don't think Cleveland's going to make it. They're only 2 games out, oddly enough. I don't think Texas is. The White Sox are kind of my wild card. I talked about how I said I was going to flip this. I was going to do the National League, and I went straight in the American League. Boy, well, okay. Well, I guess we're doing American League. I just now realized it. That's a goof on my part, but we're going to keep this live. We're all having fun with it. Doesn't really matter. I was going to do National League first because I think it's easier, because I agree with who's in the National League wildcard spots right now. And the American League I have a little tougher time with, so I was going to save it for a bit, but okay, we're doing it this way. All right, so Toronto, I'm just going to pencil them in. I think Toronto's your first wild card. I agree. I think the Blue Jays are in the wild card. Now, take my ranking them with a grain of salt. Some of this can flux, but I 100% think the Blue Jays are the number 1 wild card team. The other 2, there's a little bit of debate. Tampa hasn't been quite as good, and they've got injuries. Let's take a look at that injury list, because I didn't really get into Tampa Bay much earlier. They are missing Andrew Kittredge, who's supposed to be their closer. Maybe he'll be back in July. Brandon Lau's been out. Maybe Glasnow comes back. It's hard to say. Them versus the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox are the number 2, and they've been playing great, oddly enough. I didn't think they were a playoff team. Evaldi's been out a little bit. Whitlock's been out, but he was in the rotation, and he was in the bullpen in the rotation. Now it feels like they almost need him in the bullpen a little bit more. Kike Hernandez is coming back very soon. Matt Barnes hasn't been the same since late last year. Chris Sale, hopefully early July. James Paxton maybe July. This is why I think Boston can do it. They need to go out and get some real relief help. That's their problem. They do not have enough relief pitching help. They don't have a real closer, and there's all this talk about Tanner Houck's been functioning as their closer. Let's remember last year he blew a couple of games in the playoffs in middle relief. So he's a closer in name only, not because of effectiveness. It's just that everybody else has been bad. Diekman's been good. Strom's been good, but they're used more as lefties. They tried Diekman a little bit as a closer early, but they felt like they needed him for lefties. Hansel Robles, who kind of slid in there as a eighth inning guy last year, has been terrible. But like I said, Barnes hasn't been as good. They don't have Whitlock right now, and he's been in the rotation. It's been really hard to see what the Red Sox are going to do with all that, with their pitching problems. If you look at their roster, they have holes. Pavetta's been really good. Waka's been really good. Rich Hill's been fine. What are his numbers? Rich Hill's at a 4.09 ERA. That's fine in the American League East. Whitlock's been in the rotation. You're hopefully going to get Sale and or Paxton back. If you get one of those guys back, you can bump Whitlock to the closer role. But aside from that, Houck, Barnes, Diekman, Austin Davis, Robles, they're just not, they don't have much of a bullpen. That's their problem. If they don't outscore teams, they're not winning. I think they can win a wild card spot. I think they're going to continue playing well. They do benefit from playing, Baltimore, but that whole division's really good. Their lineup, though, there's some moving parts here, but it's pretty good. They've had some question marks at first base. Dahlbeck hasn't quite had the year they would hoped, although Franchi Cordero, who's kind of platooning with him, has been pretty good. Not great. I think we're going to see them try to get a first baseman again like they did last year when they went out and got the unconventional Kyle Schwarber. I don't think that was a bad move for them, but we'll see what they end up doing. Maybe they do stick with it. I don't know. It's hard to say. Tristan Casas is down in the minor leagues. Maybe he gets the call. I feel like they would have done that by now, but you never know. Second base, Trevor Story's been pretty good. The average hasn't been great, but the power's been there. Xander Bogaerts is a stud. They got to figure out how to keep Bogaerts in Devers. They just do. They're great. They're great players. They got to figure it out. Christian Arroyo's been nice as a utility guy. They still got Vasquez and Plawecki. In the outfield, Verdugo took a long time to get going. Kike Hernandez took a long time to get going, but he's figured some things out. Jackie Bradley's been bad. He's good defensively, but he doesn't do much. Jarren Duran has been brought up as a piece when guys are hurt. And he's been in and out a lot. Him and Ref Snyder kind of shared some playing time. Here's my thoughts. When Kike Hernandez comes back, Alex Verdugo's in left, Kike Hernandez is in center, keep Ref Snyder and Duran. Play them in right. I don't think... and they've been playing Franchi Cordero in right some, and Dahlbeck at first. They've got options. I don't think Jackie Bradley's going to play much in right at some point here when Kike Hernandez comes back. And JD Martinez is, still a golden god. He's hitting .318. He doesn't hit for as much power these days, but he's just a good hitter. So that lineup can keep him afloat. And that's exactly what I think they'll do. Stay afloat. I do not think the Red Sox are going to win the division. I don't think they're going to threaten for the top wildcard spot. But I do think the Red Sox, with the way I look at all these teams, look at how it's kind of shaking out. Look at who we talked about, the Mariners and the Angels as being those extra couple of teams. The Mariners and the Angels are not really, they're 6 and 6.5 out, and they have their own problems. Now, like I said about the White Sox were 6 out of the division. They can win their division. But I don't see the Red Sox completely falling off, so I'm going to give them the benefit here and say the Red Sox do get in the playoffs as one of the wildcard teams. Right now, I'm going to write them in as my second wildcard team. But I believe if someone passes them. Now, Tampa's a tough one to say what's going to happen. I don't think Cleveland's better than Tampa. Tampa sits at 40 and 33. I don't think Cleveland's better. I don't really think Texas is better. I still think the White Sox are a better team than they're getting credit for. I'm not in love with the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm just not, and I never am. But that's the problem with the Tampa Bay Rays. They are better. Their whole is better than the sum of their parts. Now, they're getting beat up by the Yankees, but they're winning the games they're supposed to win. They're generally good. That's all they're doing. They've been generally good. So this is where my White Sox quandary comes into play. What are the White Sox? If the White Sox are going to come back, well, then I don't see why the Minnesota Twins can't sneak in as a third wildcard team over Tampa. If the White Sox come back and beat out Tampa for the last wildcard spot, I can totally see that happening. But what if the White Sox never get together? What if this is just kind of what they are all year? Let's look at the Rays. Shane McClanahan. They've got Kluber. Right now they're going through some pitching woes. But if anyone can deal with pitching woes, it's Tampa, because they know how to bullpen. They got Ji-Man Choi. They've got Brujan. Yandy Diaz. Wander Franco. Taylor Walls. Mike Zunino. Brett Phillips. Kiermaier's out right now. Josh Lowe's been brought up. They've got Harold Ramirez and Randy Arozarena. They're better than the sum of their parts. They just win games. And, I'm recording live. I'm not pausing, looking at all this. That's why I'm reading it on the air, on my recording. I'm not broadcasting over the air. It's YouTube. But right here now, not sitting there pausing. Tampa's got their stuff together, and the White Sox just don't. And if the White Sox can't get it healthy, let's look at the White Sox last several games. Let's see. The White Sox yesterday they beat the Angels. They lost the Angels the day before. And then they only won 1 of 4 against the Orioles. They won 2 of 3 against Toronto. They won 1 of 2 against Houston. They swept the Tigers and lost 2 of 3 to Texas. They lost 2 of 3 to the Dodgers. They won 2 of 3 against Tampa, and then they've lost 2. Let's go back to May. 3 of 3 to Toronto. They just don't have it together. I think it's more likely that the White Sox come back and win their division 6 games out than knock off any of these AL East teams at 5 games out. It's really hard for me to take the White Sox out of the playoffs. It really is. I really think they're that good of a roster, but it's not together. Man, I look at this and it's just look, their rotation's good, but it's just not. Right now, as it stands, it's funny because I'm putting some teams I'm giving credit for. Well, if so and so makes a move, they'll be. If the Twins make a move, for the same reason that the White Sox will go out and do something. But if the Twins make a move, that gives them even better chance to win that division. The White Sox make a move. Are they better than the Rays? I don't know. This is my team that I'm having trouble putting. I don't know why they're so bad, but this is where I stand. I'm writing down the Rays for my last wild card spot. Yankees, Twins, and Astros will win the division. Blue Jays, Red Sox, and Rays will be the wild cards. I think the White Sox fall just short, and I mean just short, if I'm looking at everything how it is today. Having said that, I am qualifying, saying it's my show. I can do it how I want. I think the White Sox have a good chance to get in. I don't know whether that's as a wild card or division winner or if they fall short. But the White Sox are my next team in for the American League. And I think it's really hard to count them out with how good their roster looks. But they're my next team in. I'll do one for the National League just for kicks too. But that's where I'm at. White Sox are my next team in, but we've got those. But I'm going to say that just because of how things have gone for them this year, it's just not. It's the other teams have it together. I have a hard time counting the Rays out just because they've figured it out the last couple of years. There's no reason to think they couldn't figure out how to be a third wild card. They've been consistent. Now, if this were a little closer, let's flip the White Sox and the Cleveland Guardians. The Guardians are 2 out. White Sox are 5 out. If you put the White Sox 2 out, I'm going to say the White Sox are getting in the playoffs over the Rays. They're 5 out. It's the 5-game difference. It's just really hard to say. Here's the other problem. And I put stock in this. Their run differential is minus 46. The Cleveland Guardians, who I don't think are a playoff team, I think they're a contender but not a playoff team. I didn't think they would even be as good as they are. They're at plus 11. Baltimore's minus 20. The White Sox are minus 46. Let's look at the National League teams here real quick. And the Phillies, who are 3 games out of a playoff spot, are plus 33. The Arizona's the next one. They're 8 games out, and they're minus 48. So the White Sox, they haven't looked good. So I think they are my next up, but I don't think right now, I don't see them as a playoff team. What one piece are you going to give the White Sox and say, look, it's fixed? A healthy Lance Lynn is a nice addition. Is Yoan Moncada going to be better than Jake Burger? Do you need someone to be better than Jake Burger's been? Jake Burger's been a pretty good player. Like, what can you add to that team? A big outfielder? Maybe getting theirs healthy? If they get healthy, they have a chance. But what one piece at the trade deadline can you add to that team to make them whole? I was just talking about the Cardinals. You go out and add a legit starting pitcher, I think the Cardinals lineup can wade their way through the waters, and the pitching can figure itself out. I don't think there's one thing you can give the White Sox. You give the Red Sox a closer. Let's say you get Sale or Paxton back, and Whitlock goes the closer role, and he's good. And all of a sudden, you can put Houck and Diekman and all them in setup. Barnes comes back. Maybe you can figure him out. But you put Whitlock in the closer role, changes the whole thing. You give the Rays a little bit of pitching, they're a little better. Now, the Yankees are the Yankees, but I'm talking about as being a playoff team, locking into a playoff spot. The White Sox aren't one fix away. Now, I don't think he means blow it up for next year. I think you give this team another shot, get a little healthier. The same roster could do it. But right now, in the middle of it, there's not one thing you can fix here. Let's move to the National League. I've talked enough about the White Sox. You'd think I was a White Sox fan. I do like the White Sox, but I don't think I just don't think they're one fix away from where that all needs to be. National League. The Mets, Dodgers, and Brewers lead the divisions. I said Mets, Cardinals, Dodgers will be your division winners. San Diego, Atlanta, and St. Louis are currently in the wild card spots, with the Giants being a game out, the Phillies being 3 games out. Let's discount everyone else. Arizona, Miami, Colorado, Pittsburgh, Cubs, Washington, and Cincinnati. I'm game for saying San Diego and Atlanta will be in. I don't see the Phillies passing either of them. So we're going to go Padres and Braves. Because, I think the Mets and the Dodgers are both the division winners. And neither of them are that much better than their own wild card. Mets are 4 games up. Dodgers are a game and a half up. This leaves the Brewers. Brewers are currently the division leader. I think the Cardinals can get better. I don't think the Brewers can get marginally better than they are. I think their pitching is carrying them. I think the Cardinals get a little pitching. I think the Cardinals had a chance to win the division last year had they not stunk in June. Cardinals finished like 5 out. You could have won. You could have made that up. I think they were like 5 wins away. You could have won 5 more games. How many games did Johan Oviedo lose? I don't think the Phillies are a bust. I don't think they're dead in the water. I know they're going through some change. They still got Nola, Gibson, Zach Wheeler. They've figured out their bullpen a bit. They do have Rhys Hoskins. Segura's out currently. Alec Boehm, Gregorius. You're looking at Real Muto, Odubel Herrera, Nick Castellanos. Bryce Harper being out is going to hurt. They did just get Oscar Mercado from the Indians. Kyle Schwarber. This is a good roster. I don't think they have everything they need to get her done. So I'm going to rule out the Phillies. I think they're close. But they're stuck in the same spot the Phillies are. The last several years has been, the Phillies are close. The Phillies are close. How long do the Phillies stay close? Like, when do they put it all together? They went out and made those big offensive additions, but it's just, man, I'm really kind of surprised that they haven't been able to figure it out and get to be better than they were. Now, the Giants, I don't think are going to play either. So that means the Brewers are my last wild card team. Brewers. And they, in fact, currently 43 wins to the San Diego's at 45. They're 43 and 33. Braves are 43 and 32. So the Braves are a half game better by virtue of having played less games, fewer games. Cardinals are 43 and 34. They're a game behind. They're a loss behind Milwaukee. Again, Cardinals, I think, are going to add. They're going to figure out their pitching. If the Cardinals don't figure out their pitching, they're going to fall the heck apart eventually when a bigger injury occurs. But for now, I'm still predicting the Cardinals will take the division with how they've played in May and June since calling up the young guns. I don't think the San Francisco Giants and their black magic analytics, which they don't even do it the same way as Tampa. They're sitting good play. They're sitting guys like Brandon Belt. They don't have Buster Posey anymore. They've gone all in on analytics. And yes, they won all those games last year. But they stayed healthy. San Francisco is not as healthy. They don't have Kevin Gausman. They have Anthony DeSclafani, Logan Webb, Carlos Rodon, Alex Wood, Alex Cobb, all good pitchers. Cobb was someone that people were interested to see how he would do, and he is not doing well. Alex Wood, 5 ERA as well. Carlos Rodon, 2.62, he's been good. Logan Webb, who I like, 3.04. And DeSclafani, 9.95. He's not been good. So they're not having the pitching that they were getting last year. And their whole bullpen's kind of a crapshoot. Who's the closer? Who is it today? I thought it was Camilo Doval. Now it's Jake McGee. Then it's Dominic Leone. They don't... It's like they're throwing darts at a dartboard. They do have Matt Boyd maybe coming back at some point. They still have Brandon Belt, Tommy La Stella, still there. Estrada, Wilmer Flores, Evan Longoria. Brandon Crawford's currently hurt, and he hasn't been having that great a year. Jock Peterson was their big offensive addition. He plays mostly against righties, but he's having a good year. He is hitting .274 with 17 home runs. He should be in the home run derby, and he should go to the All-Star game. Mike Yastrzemski's been pretty good. He's slowed down. But I think the Giants can't get out of their own way. They're going the analytics route. They don't have all the pieces they need either. That's why I was going to do the American League last, because they were my big debate. The National League's set. Like, I think all the teams that are in playoff spots are getting in. It's just a matter of who's going to be where. So, let's look at it. Let's look at the pre and the now. The Jays, the White Sox, and the Astros were supposed to win the divisions with the Rays, Angels and Mariners, or Red Sox and Yankees. The Yankees, Twins, and Astros, I'm pretty much saying the teams that are in the playoffs now are the ones I think are going to be there. I didn't make any bold predictions. I really didn't. Like, nothing's that bold. I said the Yankees, Twins, and Astros with the Blue Jays, Red Sox, and Rays in all the same order. I said the White Sox are my X Factor team. If they could get healthy, but they haven't been able to all year, they can make a run. And I think they would knock off the Twins or the Rays first. I think the Red Sox are going to somehow get their bullpen figured out and make a run. I don't think the Red Sox are going deep into the playoffs, but I like them a little bit better than the Rays. I'm going to say the Yankees are going to the World Series. They are the American League champion. And honest to God, if I had to pick a team right now who's going to win the World Series, I'd probably say the Yankees. I really like the Blue Jays, probably second best in the entire league, but I don't know how the playoff format's going to match up right now. So I'm not going to speak on like who's playing in the ALCS, just because it's different than it used to be. It's not like, oh, here's the wild card team, and here's the not wild card team. No, we have 3 of them, and it changes everything. So I'm going to say Yankees are in the World Series. And then if you look at the National League, we had Phillies or Braves, Brewers and Dodgers, Braves or Phillies, Mets, and San Diego or St. Louis. Unlike the American League, it was a little more decided on. Between my dad and I, we had one area where we differed. It was beside that we thought the Phillies and Braves would both get in, but it was St. Louis or San Diego. Well, Phillies are the team that get knocked out of those predictions. The Angels and the Mariners were from the American League. Mets, Cardinals, and Dodgers will all win divisions, according to what I think. And, if the Mets can get healthy, they're pitching healthy, I like them better than any of these other teams. We're going to have an all-New York World Series, in my opinion. Padres, Braves, and Brewers. I think the Cardinals nudge out the Brewers. They find somehow to get a little bit better and come back and nab first place for a long term at the end of the year. I think the Cardinals are playing well enough to be a division contender. I don't know what would happen in a division series in LCS. I don't know who's going to be the second team in the first round of the playoffs. But I'm going to say Yankees versus Mets. And honestly, I think the Yankees are a little bit better. So we're going Yankees, Mets. Yankees over Mets in the World Series. There it is. There it is, folks. I said the Blue Jays would win the World Series, and my dad agreed with me before the season. And now, just before July 4th, at our quote-unquote halfway point, we're going to say the New York Yankees will defeat the New York Mets in the World Series. Coming from a Cardinals and Red Sox fan, a couple of teams that I'm supposed to despise, I'm going to say that they win the World Series. All that talk about the White Sox that I did earlier with would they make the playoffs or won't they? It's not going to matter because it's going to be the New York teams. So there you go. There's our predictions. Sorry, Chicago fans. Neither of your teams are going to get in. I think we expect that from the Cubs. The White Sox, God, I want to make them my bold prediction so bad that they're going to come back and win it, but it's amazing that that's the team that I'm agonizing over whether or not to put in. It was the Cardinals. It really was the Cardinals when we did our first show. It's like, oh, do I think they can make it? I just don't know. Like, something's going to have to change. It changed. Well, I'm going to say it for the White Sox. Something has to change. They have to get healthy. I don't think that adding a player via trade deadline is going to make them into a division winner or wildcard team. They have to get healthy. If they get healthy, then my predictions are bunk, and I'm going to say that they are more likely to go to the division than the wild card, and the Rays will hold down the fort just because they know how to do it. Maybe the Rays add a piece of the deadline, but there it is. Yankees, Twins, Astros, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Rays, knocking out the Angels, Mariners prediction from my father. Mets, Cardinals, Dodgers, Padres, Braves, and Brewers, knocking out the Phillies, which is who we both picked to be NL East and first wild card. Again, those wild card predictions at the beginning of the year were ranked. These are not. I think we kind of ranked I remember feeling like we were ranking our first wild card team, and then the second two were not as important. In this particular case, I think the Blue Jays are probably the top wild card. I don't really know about the National League one. I just put them in. I could easily see the Rays jumping up. I could see the Brewers jumping up if they get some health. So that's where we're at. We got Yankees over Mets in the World Series. We'll see how the second half of the season goes. Doesn't mean you're not going to hear any baseball from me the rest of the way. That's all we got left right now, right? Aside from those who like the golf and all the NFL training camp stuff, I'm not going to get into NBA draft, and not necessarily NHL draft or NFL training camp talk. I know we got a lot with Deshaun Watson. I don't really know what's going to happen with that. That's kind of a strange one. Maybe we'll do some NFL predictions when we get closer to the fall. That might be a good one for Mr. Bradshaw to jump in on, because I think he'd have a good time with that, and he has a lot of knowledge there. But when we come back, we're going to talk about, briefly, the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup champion, Colorado Avalanche, and the NBA Finals and the NBA champion, Golden State Warriors. Legends being made daily. We'll be right back. Welcome back to StraussNet Sports Radio. I mentioned in the open that the reason I didn't do a show in May, besides being on vacation, was we were right in the thick of kind of seeing where baseball was, but also the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA playoffs. And I didn't necessarily really want to interrupt that. So I didn't do early June, I didn't do late May. I kind of let some of that play out. Let's start in the NHL. Summer gets here, and it's one of my favorite times of year. Stanley Cup playoffs. Here are some storylines we had coming in. The Florida Panthers won the President's Trophy with the most points in the NHL. Now, the entire Eastern Conference was over 100 points. If you're not familiar, you get 2 points in the standings for a win, none for a loss, or 1 for an overtime loss. It's not win-losses, it's standings points. The only team in the NHL... So all the teams in the East got 100 points. In the Western Conference, the Kings, Dallas, and Nashville all had 99, 98, and 97 points. So they finished under 100 in the West. So some storylines going in. Florida had the 122 points for the President's Trophy. The Toronto Maple Leafs can't seem to get out of the first round. The Tampa Bay Lightning are going for a three-peat. Carolina Hurricanes had a really good season. The New York Rangers, kind of a young, up-and-coming team at this point, they were in the final in 2014. Quick differentiation coming up about the final and the NBA Finals, but we'll do that as a transition. The New York Rangers, piecing things together, they had a nice year with 110 points. Pittsburgh Penguins still getting it done with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals, kind of mainstays of the playoffs. Teams like the Islanders did not make it. Columbus. Buffalo had an okay season, but none of these touched the playoff teams. The teams that got in the playoffs in the East deserve to be in the playoffs. Let's look at those Eastern playoffs first, maybe. And we'll come back to the West. So the Panthers beat the Capitals in 6 games to end up playing the Lightning, who beat the Maple Leafs in 7. And there's all sorts of talk. Are the Maple Leafs poorly built? Did it blow it up? Is there too much in the couple of contracts they got, like Austin Matthews and Marner? I don't know. I like the Maple Leafs. I don't think they should, not like one of my favorite teams, but I don't think they should blow it up. They have some really good players. Sometimes you have to knock on the door a lot before it opens. We've seen a lot of teams like, man, how many times is this going to take? And they finally do it. The Hurricanes beat the Bruins in 7. And a lot of people felt like the Hurricanes were the better team this time around. The Bruins and the Hurricanes have played plenty, and the Bruins always seem to come out on top. The Hurricanes were better. Rangers beat the Penguins after going down in the series. They beat them in 7 games. Then they had to play the Hurricanes, and they actually went. They played. The home team won every game in the Rangers series until the last game. The Rangers Hurricanes. They were not down 3-0 to the Penguins. They were down 3-1, I believe. The Lightning swept the Florida Panthers, the President's Trophy team. President's Trophy winner lost to the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. So they had the Lightning playing the Rangers in a best-of-7. The Lightning won in 6. The Rangers could not get over the hump in Tampa. So the Lightning went to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final. Pat Maroon, who was with the Blues in 19, went to his 4th straight. He had won 3 in a row. Let's go to the West. Top team, Colorado Avalanche, who, I don't like the I've said this before. I don't like the darling team, the anointed ones. The Blackhawks were the anointed ones when they won the Stanley. Like, they're going to win it, before the season even starts. The Avalanche, they've been knocking on this door for a few years, the sports media. Oh, the Avalanche, they're the best team. They're going to win it. They haven't. They haven't really been able to get out of the second round. They did this year against the Nashville Predators, but the Nashville Predators didn't have their number one goalie. And honestly, as I said, there were 3 teams in the playoffs who did not have 100 points. Two of those were, all 3 of those were in the West, but 2 of those were wild card in the West. That would be Dallas and Nashville, who neither of them really felt like they were on the same level as the other teams. The Vegas Golden Knights were and the Winnipeg Jets and the Vancouver Canucks, they were all kind of on the doorstep. Nashville managed to get in with the 97 points. Dallas did too. The Kings were the last team of the way this works is you get 3 teams from a division. There's 4 divisions, so you get 6 teams in divisions and then 2 wild card teams to make your 8 instead of just going 1 through 8. So like Colorado, Minnesota, St. Louis, Calgary, Edmonton, Los Angeles, those are 2 separate divisions. Then you get Dallas and Nashville, which are both central, but Vegas could have been in there too. You can have either division can make up the wild card. So the Avalanche were the top team, and rightfully so. They beat the Nashville Predators, who didn't have their number 1 goalie, and their number 2 goalie kind of flunked out, and they ended up facing their number 3 goalie. Darcy Kemper did get hurt, and their backup goalie had to play for a while, and it happened a couple of times in the playoffs. But let's be honest, the Nashville Predators, all due respect to them, weren't going to beat the Avalanche. The Blues played the Minnesota Wild in a very, very, very evenly matched series. We were talking about that on the Stanley Cup playoff preview show. They fought back and forth for second and third place in the division all year. It's like the Avalanche ran and hid with the division, and who was going to be the number 2 team? Well, it ended up being Minnesota, barely. They both finished scorching hot. This was an interesting series because Game 1, the Wild won. Game 2, the Blues won. Games 3 and 4, the Wild won. Game 3, the Wild won. It was very back and forth, but the point was Ville Husso didn't. Ville Husso, who kind of took the reins from Jordan Binnington, he did not end up being the starting goalie for the second half of the series. Jordan Binnington took the job back and was fantastic. So Binnington takes the gig back. He's the starting goalie. Blues win in 6. Very physical, very fast-paced series. And it was a bad Game 3 that led to Binnington playing Game 4 on Mother's Day. And then Mother's Day. And then ending up with the Game 5 and 6 starts, winning the series in St. Louis. Remind me a lot of the Winnipeg series a couple years ago when the Blues won the Stanley Cup. So the Blues take out Minnesota. They end up having to face the Avalanche in the second round. The Flames beat the Dallas Stars 4-3. That series, I don't think that series should have gone 7. Flames just could not seem to put Dallas away. Oilers beat the Kings. That went 7. I didn't think that should have been that deep a series. Oilers and Flames, Battle of Alberta in the second round, and that's how it should have been. It ended up that way, but it seemed like it took longer to get there. And then eventually, the Oilers won 4-1 over the Flames, who were the division winner. Actually, the Flames were the division winner. A lot of people thought they might win the conference, or at least go to the conference finals, but no, it was the Oilers. The Avalanche and Blues series got ugly. That might have been the ugliest series of the whole playoffs. The Avalanche won Game 1 in Colorado before St. Louis won Game 2. Avalanche had to win Game 1 in overtime. Then in Game 3 in St. Louis, Nazem Kadri, very polarizing figure. Nazem Kadri I would deem him to be a dirty player. He himself has said, "I am who I am." That's an article about him in the Players Tribune. Nazem Kadri with Callie Rosen, the defenseman for the Blues, go hard into Jordan Binnington. Now, people are saying, the Avalanche fans are saying, oh, well, Rosen hit Binnington. Look, let's not dissect the play. Do I think that Nazem Kadri thought, ooh, I'm going to go hurt the goalie? No. I don't think Nazem Kadri in any given situation is like, I'm going to go and injure this player in particular. I think he is a reckless player who is not afraid of making contact and didn't go out of his way to hurt anyone, but also didn't make any attempt to slow down and avoid contact. If you watch the play, he really never... There was time for him to try to get out of the way and maybe lessen the blow. Had no intention of slowing down. So whoever hit who, Kadri was still the cause. Kadri takes out Jordan Binnington. He had a sprained knee. Had to leave the game. Ville Husso comes in. The 2 games in St. Louis completely implode. Kadri scores a hat trick in Game 4. He claims that there were people making racist threats on social media and threatening him in St. Louis. Look, you don't know where those people are from. I don't condone any of the social media behavior. Okay, I'm going to go out of my way and say I don't condone any of that, okay? Be better, but if you're a professional athlete and one that is okay playing on the edge where you can cause chaos, you got to have a little thicker skin than to be calling the police on some mean tweets. No one was coming to your hotel. No one was going to find your family. And I think he knew that, and it was for show to get in the Blues' heads. And it worked, because at the end of the series, the Blues did come back and win Game 5 in Colorado in a crazy comeback. Score change like 2-3 times in the end of the game, and then eventually Tyler Bozak won it in overtime to send it to Game 6 in St. Louis, where the Blues fell hard. Ryan O'Reilly, the Blues captain, came out and said, we didn't handle the Nazem Kadri-Binnington situation the way we should have. That means they were distracted. Game 3 was wrecked after that play. Game 4, they were still worried about Game 3. Kadri ends up scoring the hat trick. He's all pumped up. He did his job, and the Blues lost. Now, for the Blues season as a whole, I think the St. Louis Blues had a great season. I think if you take the drama of the Kadri thing away, here's the Blues season. They were competitive all year. They fought to try to get the 2 spot or higher in the division all year. The Avalanche ran and hit, and the better team won the second round of the playoffs. Blues made it to the second round of the playoffs and went 6 with the eventual Stanley Cup champion. They're the only team. They were going to be the only team to have beaten the Avalanche twice, but it was for naught. They were not able to successfully win the second round and move on. It's unfortunate. I wish the Blues could have done better. I really do. I didn't want to play Colorado. I didn't want to lose to Colorado. It was very, very frustrating to see that series end the way it did. I'm sorry, I said earlier Minnesota. The Blues actually won Game 1 4-0. That was a shutout. Then Minnesota won 6-2. Then they won Game 3, and the Blues won the next 3 games. Colorado series, the Blues lost Game 1, won Game 2, lost 2 and 3, lost Games 3 and 4, won Game 5, and then lost Game 6, 3-2. And on top of that, I forgot about this, the last goal of the last game against the Avalanche was scored with like seconds to go. It was the dying seconds. The Blues actually went up 2-0 or 2-1 in the game, and then the Avalanche tied it. And then with only seconds left, Darren Helm threw a puck at the net for the sake of, throw it at the net. You never know what's going to happen. And eventually, the puck snuck in past Husso. So the Blues had a good season. They lost round 2 to the eventual Stanley Cup champions, the team they've been chasing all year, the team they lost to in the playoffs last year. I didn't want them to play the Avalanche because I'm kind of sick of the Avalanche. I'm sick of Kroenke. He won 2 champions this year after spitting on St. Louis, a city that gave him way more hospitality than they should have. I'm not happy that that guy got a second trophy this year. The Rams win the Super Bowl, and now the Avalanche beating the Blues and going through the Blues, eventually winning the Stanley Cup. Not too thrilled about that, but Blues had a good year. If I had to guess what's going to happen next year, I would really hope to see David Perron back. He is a free agent. Jordan Binnington, I think, is going to be the goalie next year. Ville Husso is a free agent, and I think eventually he's going to walk and get the most money he can, and more power to him. Keep the guy you got. It's complicated with the free agency stuff, but the Blues would have to trade off Binnington to keep Husso due to salary cap, and I would rather not. I don't think the differences between the two of them are enough to say, let's harm ourselves in one area to keep this guy. Binnington and Husso are not different enough, if at all. I think Binnington could be better. Maybe he was hurt this year. We don't know. But Binnington has a contract. Just hang on to him. So we'll see how the Blues are going into next year. I have high hopes that they can continue to... hopefully they'll be similar to this year. We'll see. Doug Armstrong's really good at doing some fun stuff. Hopefully Tarasenko's back for the last year of his contract. Seems like that was patched up. But I digress. What happened in the conference finals, Aaron? Well, the Lightning beat the Rangers 4-2. The Rangers won the first 2 games of that series and eventually lost the whole series to the Lightning. The Avalanche swept the Oilers. A couple overtime games. The Oilers never looked like they really stood too much of a chance. You kind of figured that was going to happen. I thought maybe, okay, well, we tried to play the physical game against Avalanche and it didn't work. Maybe the Oilers can outskate and outscore them. No, it didn't happen. Stanley Cup final, two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Lightning taking on the Avalanche. Avalanche being the high seed. They won the first 2 games at home fairly easily. Then the series shifted back to Tampa. And remember what happened to the Rangers. Well, the Lightning did, in fact, win Game 3, 6-2. But Game 4 lost 3-2. They just never really seemed to be able to get over the hump there. They did win in Colorado 3-2. So you thought, maybe, just maybe, this team can find a way to force Game 7. They end up losing 2-1 on their own ice, which is it's hard to beat Tampa in Tampa. It's hard to beat Colorado in Colorado. Nazem Kadri even comes back and gets a shot in at how the ice is bad. That's just what I don't understand about why people like this guy. He doesn't just play the game. He's got to get like some sort of mental thing. He's got to get some sort of shot in at everyone. And it's not, we'll talk about Draymond Green and stuff in the NBA finals, but Kadri rubs me the wrong way more than Draymond Green does. Nazem Kadri seems to go out of his way to cause trouble. Draymond Green is a very tough physical and mental player. Nazem Kadri is a tough physical player, but he seems to go out of his way to cause trouble. It seems to be his MO. He causes the problem and then plays the victim. He has all these dirty hits in the playoffs, and he says suspension after suspension after suspension, and then he doesn't take any of the blame. He's like, well, they did this to me. I got pushed. These people have mean tweets at me. He shouldn't have been standing there or I wouldn't have been able to hit him. It's like, take some responsibility, man. You're a professional NHL player. And unfortunately, the bad guy won here. He got his name on the Stanley Cup. Now, I'm not, I like Landeskog and McKinnon and all them. It's not a dirty team. I don't really like them. I didn't like Kroenke. I've never really liked when the Blues play in Colorado. They always play poorly there. And then it's not like it's a bunch of the players. I like the Red Wings. People know I like the Blues, and then I have a little bit of love for the Red Wings and the Rangers. It's not the Red Wings Avalanche thing. I just have never really been a fan of theirs. There's teams that I enjoy playing, even if they're a rival. There's teams I don't. Like, I like playing the Nashville Predators. My aunt thinks I'm crazy because I bought a Nashville Predators hat when we stopped in Nashville on vacation. I do not like the Blackhawks. Some people think they're equal-level rivals. I like the Red Wings. People think I'm insane because I'm a Blues fan. I don't like other teams in the division. So be it. I have never really liked the Avalanche. I just don't. I don't dislike a lot of their players or anything like that. I don't like Kadri. And I didn't think they were as good as they were a year ago because I thought that Grubauer is better than Darcy Kemper. This happens every so often. You have a team that has a good, not great goalie win the Stanley Cup. Antti Niemi, Blackhawks, they just outscored everyone. Corey Crawford was a better goalie for the championships he won than Antti Niemi was. Jordan Binnington's a good goalie, and he went on a crazy hot streak. Darcy Kemper did not go on a crazy goalie hot streak. And you can say, oh, Binnington's not elite. You can say whatever you want. I don't know what to make of the Binnington is he elite discussion. I think he's fine. But this isn't like Marc-Andre Fleury or Andrei Vasilevsky, who are probably going to the Hall of Fame. Darcy Kemper did not go on a Binnington-esque run. We've had Vasilevsky the last two, and then we had, the Capitals and Fleury with Vegas. Usually you see one of the teams that gets in the finals is because they have a goalie that goes crazy. The Avalanche, Kemper is not that guy. He wasn't crazy good in these playoffs. He was good when he needed to be. They won. I'm not trying to belittle Darcy Kemper. Good for him, and he's a starting goalie in the NHL, and he should be. He's not the Colorado Avalanche didn't win because they got a goalie to stand on his head. In fact, he was out for a couple of different times in the playoffs, and their backup goalie had to play. The Avalanche, as a team, won. So, congratulations to some of their players, guys like Eric Johnson. I'm never going to take away from a championship. I'm going to take one quick break while I reset and look up NBA Finals stuff. We had the Celtics falling to the Warriors. I finally got to see my Celtics back in the finals. Right back. Welcome back to StraussNet Sports Radio. For the last time here on this episode, we're going to talk very briefly about the NBA Finals and wrap it up for today. It's been a long episode. I hope you've enjoyed. The NBA playoffs went through a hokey play-in round this year, so I'm not going to get into that. I think I talked about it in the last one. But the point is, and I don't follow the NBA as much as the other leagues, and I'm honest about that. But I do like my Celtics. Let's just kind of look at the path of a couple of different teams that we thought might. The Heat were the number one in the East. Number one in the West were the Suns. Suns were in the finals last year and lost to Milwaukee, who was the 3 seed this year. Suns were the 1 seed. The Warriors were the 3 seed. Celtics were the 2 in the East. I'm jumping back and forth. Celtics went through the Nets 4-0, with all the glory of the Nets and all the superstar teams they've been building. And Kyrie Irving. Remember, 2018, the Celtics almost made the NBA Finals, but lost to LeBron and the Cavaliers. And it's kind of been a thorn in my side ever since. I want to see the Celtics get back. I want to see Jason Tatum and company get back. So they beat the Nets. Then they beat the defending champion Bucks in 7. Then they go on to play the Heat, who were in the NBA Finals in the bubble in 2020. And that was a 7-game series. They ended up having to win that on the road in Miami, and pretty handily, oddly enough. And they make it back to the NBA Finals. This announces to the NBA world that Tatum, Brown, and Smart can do it. They've got their team to an NBA Finals. The question, I talked with a buddy of mine, Colton, who I used to work with, about how the Celtics never seem to have the guy. And I've talked ad nauseum about it to people. The Celtics don't have one of these players that people like to consider to be elite. Is Jason Tatum elite? This might finally... let's take it as from before the NBA Finals. Getting in the NBA Finals, you can finally kind of say, okay, Jason Tatum has gotten the NBA Finals. He's an elite player. He's still a young guy, so there's still a little of this up-and-coming star thing about him. Same with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart, who's a little bit different type of player. But if you look at the Celtics, look at who they've played. The Nets have superstar power, like a lot of household names. The Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis, household name. Miami, Jimmy Butler. All right, the Celtics, it's Jason Tatum. I like this about the Celtics. I really liked it back in 2018 when I was like, oh, well, Kyrie and all that. No, this young group finally made it to the finals, and there's no reason to think they can't make it back to the finals moving forward. It doesn't always happen, as we saw with the end of the Pierce, Garnett, and Ray Allen era. Meanwhile, the Warriors, they played the Nuggets in 5, the Grizzlies in 6, and the Mavericks in 5. The Warriors kind of had to reinvent themselves. They were really they were more of a mini dynasty a few years ago, and then injuries and Kevin Durant leaves, and it was kind of like, hey, we gotta get back, and they did, and it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable what this Warriors team can do. These guys, Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green, and they're all different. Curry, and I don't think any of them are like quite the divas that the NBA tends to be. Now, Draymond Green does play a very mental game with people. I mentioned him against Kadri. All this, he fouled out of a lot of games. None of the stuff he did rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm a guy who screams dirty player. Like, I'm one of the first people to go, he's dirty! He's a dirty player! I'm not going to say that about Draymond Green. He likes to push the envelope, but it's funny because people might think I'm nuts because I don't follow NBA as much. Like, you're ripping Kadri, but you're okay with Green. Okay is a good way of putting it. I'm not a huge fan of his. He's a loudmouth, and he does a lot on the court, but he does it with purpose rather than just to cause chaos like an NHL player who's a dirty player. Klay Thompson seems to be like a quiet assassin. I don't hear him say anything ever. Maybe just because I don't follow. I am out of my element with the NBA talk, and I know it. But Steph Curry I'm very familiar with, and he's just a heck of a player. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He finally got his Finals MVP. And it's amazing what these guys have done. And Kerr is a great coach. And, going into the Finals, I didn't take any bets because I didn't feel confident enough in the Celtics. I felt like, okay, I want you to be happy that they're there because we don't know if they're gonna win. Now the Celtics come out and win 120-108 in Game 1, and all of a sudden you're going, okay, they can beat them. They can beat them. They're good. They can do it. Then they lose Game 2. Then they win Game 3. And it's like, okay, we're up 2-1. You win Game 4 at home, and you're a win away. That's when the series swung. I almost said the Lakers. The Golden State Warriors won the next 3 games handily, and that was it. Warriors won again. Am I surprised by this? No. My heart been broken by this? Honestly, no. Probably if I followed the NBA more, I'd be a little annoyed, but I wanted the Celtics to get there. They did. Now, here's why I prefaced earlier talking about Jason Tatum as a star before the Finals. He didn't really show up during the Finals. There was a little bit of... It was almost like the Cardinals in 2004 against the Red Sox, where Pujols, Edmonds, and Rowland didn't show up. The Celtics studs... Al Horford was like one of their best players. The Celtics studs didn't really get it done. Now, I don't know whether that was the bright lights of the Finals stage. It's different when you get to that last round. Super Bowl, Finals, Final... or the World Series. It's just different. There's more media. There's more everything. Everything's louder. Everything's magnified. Maybe there was a little bit of that. But I think... I said this to a friend of mine. Let's take it back a year and play them against the Suns from a year ago. So another team that's not necessarily dripping with finals appearances in the last few years. I think it'd be a little more even. I think Golden State was so experienced that it doesn't even faze them, whereas the Celtics, it does. And the Warriors were able to play off that. And they goaded the Celtics into playing their game, not the other way around. Do I think the Celtics can make it back in the next year or two and win it? Sure. Can they beat the Warriors? Possibly. It's hard to count a team like the Warriors or the Tampa Bay Lightning out till they're out. The Lightning could easily go back next year and win 3 out of 4. But I'm not too down about the Celtics losing this, and I don't think Boston is either. Quick trivia note here. Why? I don't know if I want to say trivia, but fun note. So the NBA Finals versus the Stanley Cup Final. And people always debate what that means. Well, the Stanley Cup Final clearly means the final series. This is the Stanley Cup Final. This is it. The NBA Finals, there's some debate whether it means the 2 teams, the finalists, or the 7-game series. the NBA Finals, the final 7 games. Anyway, that's a fun note to end on. Thanks for bearing with me yapping, shaking off some rust, but I was happy to see the NBA Finals and the Celtics. I was not happy to see the Avalanche win the Stanley Cup. And the Stanley Cup final playoffs were weird for me because I was gung-ho Blues, and when the Blues lost, the Rangers were in the conference final, and I was pulling for them. I actually had 20 on the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup, to win like 110, but that clearly didn't cash. I still owe Mr. Bradshaw $20 as he recovers. We wish him his best. And baseball continues. July 4th is coming. Go out, celebrate, launch some fireworks, do some irresponsible stuff, have fun. It's what it's for. For all the people who didn't get to the last couple of years because restrictions or because they just didn't feel comfortable, things are about as comfortable as they're probably going to be. I mean, there's still... I don't talk politics or health stuff, but let's be honest, people are going to be careful for the time being, so there's no rules right now. Go out, have fun, have a 4th of July, shoot some fireworks off, watch some baseball, go to some baseball. All-Star Game is coming up here in mid to late July. We'll see who makes that. Home Run Derby. We'll see if we get an episode fired off here around that to talk about All-Star stuff. Maybe we'll get Tam in, maybe Dad, talk about the Home Run Derby and some of our most exciting All-Star and home run experiences. Everybody seems to have a different opinion on the All-Star Game and the formats. I will truly say, from beginning to end of the whole All-Star Week, MLB does the best All-Star Game. The NHL, you like the skills competition, but the game kind of lame. NBA has been more lame in the recent years. The Pro Bowl doesn't get a lot of traction. The MLB All-Star Home Run Derby and Home Run Derby in the game they're pretty exciting, even if you don't love the format. It's fun to watch. It's a good show. That is in L.A. Los Angeles Dodgers will be hosting this year after Colorado hosted after the game was taken away from the Atlanta Braves last year. Colorado did a good job. It's going to be really hard for the Dodgers to outdo that. But for now, thank you so much for listening and bearing with me. 2-hour episode here. And, we'll see you next time. Enjoy your sports, and thanks for listening to StraussNet Sports Radio.